What if Allah was showing you someone, but you couldn't see anything? Not because you're blind, but because you're afraid to look. There is this person. They don't shout, they don't impose themselves, but their presence persists, gently, silently. They're there, in your thoughts, in your prayers, sometimes even in your dreams. You forget them, then they come back, again and again. What if it wasn't just you? What if it was Allah, showing them to you, not to distract you, but to align you with what was already meant for you? In this video, you won't hear verses or stories. You'll hear signs, feelings, profound truths that many experience, but few understand. Stay until the end. Because if your heart is concerned, this video might just be your answer. 1. Why does this person always come back to your mind? There are names that remain, faces that never fade despite time, despite distance, despite your desire to forget them. You make your du'as with sincerity. You speak to Allah in the silence of the night, in the tears of your sajda. You say, Ya Rab, show me what is right, detach me from what is not written, let no doubt inhabit me. And yet, there is this person. You don't seek them out. You don't force them into your thoughts, but they come back. Not with a bang, not like a toxic obsession. They come back, gently, with a reminder, a conversation you've had, a word that makes you think of them, or sometimes for no reason, just a presence in your heart, a feeling that won't go away. And you struggle. You want to know, is it my soul, my ego? Or is it a sign? Is it a trap, an illusion, or a trace of something true? You turn the page, you try. You occupy your mind, you remain lucid, you do what is necessary. But the heart doesn't lie. It keeps this person in a discreet corner, a silent corner, but alive. And you ask yourself, but why? Why does this person always come back? Why her, when I've tried to move on? Why him, when everything seems distant? Listen carefully. You need to know something that no one has told you clearly. Allah doesn't need to speak to you out loud. He doesn't need to write on a wall, nor send you a spectacular dream. Sometimes He places a reminder in your heart, and He leaves it there. He lets it grow in silence, as long as your soul remains sincere. You think it's just a thought, but what if it's a trace of light, an echo of a spiritual direction that you refuse to face for fear of misunderstanding? You see, when Allah wants to purify your heart, He places tension there. But when He wants to guide you, He places peace there, even in the midst of doubt. And that's the difference. You don't feel destructive confusion. You feel a peace that returns, a serenity when you think of this person in the right context with a pure intention. Not to fill a void, not to validate your past, but because this person reminds you of a version of yourself that you respect. And what if that were the real sign? You see, sometimes Allah doesn't respond to your dua with events. He responds with inner stability, a deep calm, which you only feel when you think of something or someone in alignment with your believing heart. Do you think it's trivial? Do you think your heart doesn't know what it's doing? But tell me, when was the last time in your life you felt this peace? Not excitement, not attachment, peace. If this person, even in their absence, pushes you to question yourself, to make more sincere dua, to purify your intention, to seek the face of Allah before seeking human love, then ask yourself, is this really just a passing thought? Maybe what you're feeling isn't weakness. Maybe it's a direction. Perhaps it's Allah who keeps this name in your heart, not to test you, but to invite you to see with your soul what your eyes refuse to accept. What if this person wasn't there for you to possess, but so that you could understand your worth, what you want, and what you're willing to build to deserve what is truly written. You can continue to doubt, but this doubt won't go away until you face it, not the person, yourself. Because sometimes it's not them who returns to your heart. It's Allah, who's waiting for you to finally open your eyes. 2. Yasmin's story and what moved her. Yasmin was 27 years old, not 19, not 22. She was no longer at the age of illusions nor of easy passions. She was in that fragile in-between, between faith, scars, and hope. She prayed to get married. But not just any old way. She no longer wanted a pious mask, nor a well-rehearsed speech. She wanted someone who would be a cause of closeness to Allah, someone who wouldn't fill her emptiness, but who would help fill it with light. And then there was him, a brother. Nothing haram, nothing vague either, just exchanges, advice, a few discussions about religion, and a gentleness in his words that struck quietly. He hadn't promised her anything, neither had she. But in the silence, there was a connection. The kind of bond you can't explain, because it's not based on appearances, nor on expectations, but on a resonance of the soul. And yet, Yasmin cut everything off, without argument, without drama. She just disappeared, out of fear, out of modesty, out of excess precaution, she thought. She called it taqwa. Better to run away than to fall into attachment, she repeated to herself. If it's written down, he'll come back. If not, it was a test. She did what many do. She closed the door before even checking if there was a light behind it. She wanted to do things right, perhaps too right. But the heart doesn't always follow religious logic as we formulate it with fear. So he came back, not him, not in person, but his words, his reminders, his impact. She would open a book, and a sentence would remind her of something he had said. She would hear a religious recommendation and remember the gentleness with which he had once whispered the same thing to her. She would pray, and without meaning to, his name would cross her heart, and she was ashamed. She would ask herself, am I weak? Am I attached to something I must flee? But deep down, she knew it wasn't an obsession. It wasn't a poorly healed wound. It was a subtle presence which wouldn't go away despite the months. So one evening, alone in her room, tears in her eyes from having doubted so much, she broke down. And in a sajda that resembled a confession, she simply said, Ya Allah, if it's him, show him to me clearly, without me having to search, without me having to chase after anything. And if it's not him, then gently extinguish this connection in my heart, without pain. It wasn't a request made lightly. It was a supplication made after months of inner struggle. The kind of dua you make when you're ready to accept divine truth, even if it hurts. The next day, she didn't have a spectacular dream. She didn't receive an unexpected message. She didn't come across his name on social media or in a chat. She simply felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. A calm, a profound calm, an unusual peace. As if her heart, for the first time, had laid down its weapons. As if Allah silently was saying to her, you have spoken, I have heard, now rest. It wasn't an answer like in the movies. It wasn't clarity written on a sign. It was an inner stability which shouted nothing, but reassured everything. She woke up that day feeling different, not because she had received external confirmation, but because, in the silence of her faith, something had settled, and that calm has never left her heart since. 3. When your heart calms down, it may be Allah speaking. You look for signs, obvious signs, spectacular ones. You want the sky to change color, for your phone to ring at the exact moment you say his name.
You want a clear dream, a word to fall, a light to descend. You want clear things, direct answers, because your heart is tired of doubting, tired of loving blindly, tired of believing in the wrong people. So you say to Allah, Ya Rabb, show me, give me a sign, speak to me, guide me, enlighten me. But you don't realize Allah has already spoken to you. He's been doing it for weeks, maybe even months, but not in the way you expected, not through the spectacular, not in the noise, not in the euphoria. He spoke to you calmly, in that silent moment when you thought of this person, and your heart didn't panic. It didn't tremble. It didn't run. It settled. You may not have noticed, because you're used to measuring love by intensity, passion, fire. But that's not always the true sign. Sometimes the true sign is silence, a silence in your soul, not an emptiness, not a coldness, a silence that soothes, a silence that says, you're not in danger here, a silence that resembles the Rama. You know how you recognize bad people? Your heart runs after them. It clings on. He clings out of fear, need, and lack. He trembles, he writhes, and you call it love. But in reality, it was survival. But with this person, something else happens. You don't feel fire, you feel water, not burning passion, but peace that restores. You don't feel a desire to possess. You feel a need to grow. You don't feel urgency. You feel time, time to do right, time to understand, time to be worthy. And your heart, it remains calm. It doesn't try to run away, but it doesn't get carried away either. It's there, stable, anchored. What if this was the true divine language? A heart in alignment, a purified emotion, a connection that doesn't stifle your faith but breathes with it. You don't want a connection that distances you from Allah. You no longer want your heart to be a compass out of alignment. So Allah, in His Rahmah, gives you something else. Not a shock, not an addiction, but a stability you may never have known. You don't know what to do with it, because you've never been taught to recognize healthy love. The kind that doesn't make noise, but that profoundly transforms your relationship with Allah, so you doubt. You say to yourself, it's not intense enough. You're afraid it'll be bland. But what you call bland, maybe it's the first time your soul has tasted true tranquility. What if this was the sign? Not a screaming voice, but a heart that no longer cries out. A heart that is no longer at war. Not a violent emotion, but a peace that you've never been able to interpret until now. Do you want to know if this person is the one? Ask yourself this. Does your connection with them extinguish the light within you? Or does it gently illuminate it without burning you? Because Allah doesn't necessarily send you someone to turn everything upside down. Sometimes He sends you someone to bring you into alignment. And you don't yet know if it's her, if it's him, but you know one thing. Your heart no longer cries out. And when your heart falls silent like that, maybe it's not emptiness. Maybe it's the sacred silence of the answer, and perhaps Allah speaks to you again, but this time with a gentleness that only your soul can hear. 4. Allah does not send you a light so that you run away from it. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself alone, in a desert, a silent, burning, endless desert. You walk, again and again. Your steps sink into the hot sand. Your breath is short, your lips dry. You don't even know what you're looking for anymore. You move forward because to stop is to die. And suddenly, in the distance, something sparkles, a shape, a glow, a place. You think you're dreaming. You squint. You slow down. Your heart beats faster, but not with fear, with hope. Is this a mirage? Is this another illusion? You've seen too many false promises in your life, too many beautiful visions that were nothing but traps. So you hesitate. But the closer you get, the more the air changes. The heat becomes bearable. The wind picks up. A breeze gently caresses you, as if the desert itself were saying, "You can put your burden down here." And you arrive, an oasis, not a legend, not a hallucination. The water is clear, the shade is soothing, the palm trees don't speak, but they understand you. And deep inside, something says, "This is real." But there you are. You doubt. Not because you can't see, but because you've suffered too much to trust in peace. And that's when you do what so many hearts do. You step back. You look around, as if this calm weren't deserved, as if Allah couldn't have reserved for you something good. You say to yourself, "No, it's too simple, too obvious. If it were really for me, it would be harder, wouldn't it? I should fight. I should suffer. I should fear." But who taught you that Rahmah must always hurt? Who made you believe that a divine gift must necessarily come wrapped in pain? What if this person you've been pushing away was precisely this oasis in your inner desert? What if, after all your wanderings, after all your wounds, Allah had decided to send you someone who doesn't empty you, but who soothes you? Someone who doesn't fill a void, but who helps you rediscover the source. You thirst for sincerity, thirst for security, thirst for God in a relationship, and now He sends you an aligned soul. Not perfect, not flawless, but sincere, calm, real. Someone who doesn't make you forget Allah, but who makes you remember Him even more. And you? Do you want to leave? Because you're afraid? Afraid it's a trap? Afraid that this happiness, so simple, is an illusion? But Allah doesn't light your path so that you close your eyes. He doesn't place a light in your darkness so that you hide from it. He doesn't send you a beautiful, stable, aligned soul so that you become afraid and retreat. You've walked alone for too long. You've crossed dry winds, cruel dunes, burning trials, and now that He's given you a place to rest your heart, do you doubt your place in this refuge? But what if it's not a mirage? What if it's an oasis? Not because it's perfect, but because your heart no longer suffers in His presence. And perhaps this water, this peace, this serenity, it's not just someone, it's Allah Himself who has answered you, not with words, but with the sacred feeling of finally being in the place where your soul breathes. And the only real question that remains is this: have you healed enough not to run away from this light? Or are you still trapped by the idea that love, true love, must necessarily resemble a trial? 5. But what if it was a test, an illusion? What if I was wrong again? What if it was a disguised trap? What if Allah was testing me and I mistook the test for a sign? What if my feelings were just another deception? Do you hear that voice? That voice inside you that never leaves you alone? The one that speaks louder when something peaceful presents itself. It doesn't scream when you choose error, but it panics when you approach the truth. You think it's wisdom, you think it's prudence. But ask yourself this: is it really the fear of God that speaks to you? Or is it the trauma of your past disguised as faith? You say you're afraid of being in an illusion. But ask yourself, what if the real illusion was always believing that you don't deserve something pure? You want to be sure, you want guarantees, but since when has sincerity been measured by the absence of risk? Remember, the greatest paths to Allah are those that purify. And purification does not always come from pain. It can come from a connection, from a clean gaze, from a just word, from a gentle reminder. It can come from a person. So instead of asking, is this person a test? Ask yourself, Does this person elevate me? Am I more lucid in their presence? Am I more careful about my behavior, my language, my intentions? Is my heart becoming more humble, more true, more connected to God? Because here's the truth. What brings you closer to Allah cannot be an illusion. But sometimes, what elevates you scares you, because it confronts you with yourself, because you can no longer run away from your inconsistencies, because someone speaks to you gently, where you were used to being yelled at, because someone looks at you with respect, where you've only known the gaze of need, and you call it too good to be true. But what if it were simply just true enough to transform you? Look carefully. Bad people don't make you ask these questions. They seduce, they manipulate, they take, but they don't wake you up. This connection, this person, this presence, it makes you think. It makes you doubt, but not Allah, yourself. And sometimes that's it, the greatest gift. You want clear signs? Then look at how you're changing. This connection, does it cleanse your heart, or does it dirty it? Does it distance you from your vices, or does it feed your ego? Does it bring you back to Allah, or just return you to a weaker version of yourself? And if you answer with sincerity, you'll see. Perhaps what you're experiencing isn't an illusion, but a mirror that Allah holds up to you, not so you can see that person, but so you can finally see yourself as you become by their side. And what about fear? It will remain a little, but it will no longer be the fear of falling. It will become the fear of fleeing, what your soul has always longed for. Sometimes, the confirmation you're waiting for isn't external proof. It's this inner calm that Allah silently sends you. If this video resonated with what you're feeling, it's no coincidence. You may be in a phase where you're looking for answers, direction, clarity, so pause. Come back to yourself and sincerely ask Allah, if this is the person, purify my intentions and open this path with light. And if you want more content that speaks to your heart, your soul, your reality, subscribe to this channel. Activate the bell. Because these kinds of reminders, they're not just videos. They're answers your heart may have been waiting for a long time. You are not alone. Allah hears you. And sometimes, He answers you like that. Like,